Hey Sanjay,
Hi Deepak, how are you?
pretty good. How about you?
Good. Sorry for the confusion. Huh?
Don't worry about it.
What happened? This office ID, someone deleted that meeting, so I created a new meeting. You know how this works. Yeah.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah. So how's everything?
Pretty good. How about yourself? How was?
Going on, yeah. So we got positive, entire family, the three of us,
Oh,
so recovered. We had to be hospitalized. So yeah, fun
uh,
experience. Yeah. Mhm.
and yeah, and was this in this wave or?
Second wave, yeah, second wave,
Uh,
March, just at the beginning. So luckily we
okay,
got
luckily,
beds.
okay, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, it was crazy. No one expected it to.
Seriously. You are
Be,
based out of Bangalore, Deepak,
I am.
and you have spent some 18 years with Accenture.
Arre Baba, yeah.
Eh?
I continue to joke saying that I don't get job anywhere else.
You have become a furniture, right? Furniture
Yeah,
piece.
become everyone coming around see that that was used by the Queen of England. अनमोल हो गया हूँ.
अच्छा दीपा जरा चेक करो आप कैन यू शेयर योर स्क्रीन जस्ट चेक प्लीज
Yeah, I'm doing that, and I don't have PPT, so I'll talk. But I want to give a demo on what the visual blockchain looks like.
excellent that
So,
would be of great help.
yeah, so and then people can play around with it because it's a public domain stuff. So
Excellent.
we'll do all of those crazy stuff.
So
Um,
for how long have you been handling this blockchain?
Close to 4 years now.
4 years now. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, been very. It's been pretty good.
So now, right now, all traveling and all won't be happening, right?
Total bun.
Total bun.
Then this will turn out being de facto
Is
scenario
it?
because
Acha.
because if you can, it'll at least reduce by 50%.
50%. That's big, yeah.
Because two things, no, all companies, at least the IT ones, are looking at how can they become sustainable, and travel is one big part.
Carbon footprint. Huh?
Yeah, carbon footprint, and travel is one of those major things. And now that you've tasted the blood of you can do work and work with a client remotely, it'll become a norm. So yeah, it'll reduce by at least. That's my take. Of course, few of them believe that when it opens, there'll be a mad rush, like what happened in Delhi.
Yeah, I saw some Twitter feeds where people are, after the lockdown, people are driving like crazy.
Exactly.
कल ही यहाँ पर एक ऑडी का एक्सीडेंट हुआ, एक ऑटो वाला बेचारा, एन ऑटो गाय गॉट किल्ड नियर द इनऑर्बिट मॉल. सो सैड. मैंने कहा सब इस सब से आप बच गए एक्सीडेंट में.
So yeah.
So we have Sudipta here. She is a faculty colleague. Deepak. Sudipta,
Awesome.
welcome.
Hey Sudipta.
Sudipta, can you please share the new
Good
link?
evening, sir.
Good evening. वो कर क्योंकि this guy pen चलाया suddenly deleted the meeting. So Deepak was not able to get in. Then I created a new meeting.
अरे सर मेरे साथ भी वही प्रॉब्लम हुआ. I just sent it to my students.
हाँ और बाकी लोगों को भी बोल दो यार. नरसिम्हा अपना नरसिम्हाचारी.
Yes, sir. Doing that.
Anyways, YouTube पर they can watch, but we want some people here, right?
I'm just sending, sir.
और दीपक आपने मेरे को अपना राइट अप नहीं भेजा, तो मैं एक लाइन का इंट्रोडक्शन दूंगा, आप अपने आप को खुद इंट्रोड्यूस करना.
अरे बस कुछ नहीं सर.
सिर्फ नाम ही काफी है.
I'm very shy that way, so
अरे
we'll get into the meat of things.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it.
And sorry for hounding you. Message.
Not at all hounding. It was a good reminder. Otherwise, I think it's from your experience. People forget. In a corporate world, we keep doing so many things, and that too with pandemic now, the multitasking is increased so much.
Correct.
That you're doing 10 things at different times. So I understand. So
मैंने पिछली बार ना संजीव had come blockchain के लिए similar this thing. तो बीच में उसके इतने calls आ रहे थे, होता है अरे client का call है, I can't miss it. मैंने कहा बिल्कुल I can understand. So और US client है तो शाम को ही चालू होगा.
correct.
So when was the last you traveled, Deepak? 2019 or 2020 you traveled?
Just before pandemic, I came back from US.
हाँ, अच्छा. February, March.
Feb. Jan, Feb. And which by that time Italy had, and then China and Italy were the hotspots. And we were thinking, India में क्यों आएगा?
हमारा immunity strong है.
Exactly. All that crap and then get hit. No. Now even people who don't step out also get.
It's 18 hours.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Vaibhav has joined. Deepak, so we'll take couple of minutes क्योंकि ये changeover हुआ है ना, so let's get some students. Sorry for keeping you waiting.
I understand. Don't worry about it.
Vaibhav, hello.
Hello, sir.
Vaibhav, good evening. So Vaibhav is a faculty colleague, Deepak.
Nice.
Hi.
वैभव स्टूडेंट्स को यार नया लिंक भेज दे.
हाँ, मैं अभी तुरंत भेज दे रहा हूँ सर. That is what.
हाँ यार, वो पेंचलैया ने क्या किया, he deleted the meeting, पता नहीं क्यों. दीपक was waiting बोल रहा है कि invalid meeting ID बोल रहा है. मैंने कहा मैं देखता हूँ यार.
हाँ, नहीं, that is, मैं तुरंत भेज देता हूँ, एक सेकंड.
तो मुझे लगा I thought I'll join early today, then I thought मुझे कहीं कुछ है ही नहीं.
Yes, you can't be early sometimes. And then when you're early, this is what happens.
Students have started joining in, right? So I think we will start, right? Students are coming in. Right, Deepak? So let's start. So welcome, Deepak, to this session on blockchain, and I'm very happy and glad that you accepted our invite. So on behalf of IBS Hyderabad, faculty and students, I welcome you. A warm welcome to you. And I just have a one-line introduction for Deepak, as I was just telling him. So Deepak heads the blockchain practice at Accenture, and he is very much an Accenture man. So he's been with Accenture for 18 years now, and we'll listen to him about blockchain. Over to you, Deepak.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been running this blockchain practice for 4 years, very active on the social media. I've recently started the blockchain jargon bursters, if someone wants to follow. Gives you all the nuances of what blockchain is. All throughout my 18 years, I've been doing emerging tech. So it started off with online banking, and I just came in and bringing online banking to US was a pretty emerging stuff that happened. And then we call it digital now, and the transformations and so on. We did this in 2003. So that was pretty interesting. A few other things which I'm proud of in my career. I'm the I'm the biometrics architect for Aadhaar. So whatever you guys go and sometimes crib about the fingerprints not happening. So the backend is developed and architected by me, where we do the fusion of fingerprint, face, and iris. So those are a few of the things. If you guys are not speaking, if you can go on mute, please.
Sai.
Guys, I would request all of you to be on mute. It's very disturbing. Please go on, Deepak. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I understand. Few of the tech nuances which we need to jailify, as we say. Anyways, so that's me, and that's where my interesting career has been. Last 4 years, I've been doing helping our clients globally implement blockchain, and I think Accenture is one of those very few companies which have taken blockchain to production. And we have done some interesting use cases as we go along and speak. We'll let you know on different use cases which we have taken to production where clients have been using it. Okay, so what will we cover today is, if you're not speaking, go on mute. Thanks a lot. Or even if you're not speaking, go on mute. Other than me, no one else can speak for another 1 hour, I guess, or till we open up for Q&A. So what we will cover today is a very quick getting on same page on what blockchain is and how Accenture looks at blockchain. Second, we will see what are the use cases which are getting prominent in the blockchain world. And then finally, we will touch upon what are the career opportunities you can look at in the blockchain world, right? So I'll be using blockchain, DLT, and a new terminology called as multi-party systems. So wherever you feel I'm telling about blockchain, it's also for DLTs. DLT is nothing but distributed ledger technology, and MPS. And I'll go ahead and explain what MPS is in a minute. Unlike others, I don't like a lot of PPTs, so I've not prepared PPT. We'll keep it open. I'll keep on speaking, and wherever you guys have questions, go ahead and type that on, and I'll have a look at it and then pick those up from there and try to address them. And then we will do something cool. I'll show you blockchain visually, what blockchain means, and it's a public stuff, so you can then play around with it later. With that, so let's start with what is blockchain, right? So in simple terms, blockchain is a database which is shared, secure, and agreeable. All the three things, right? It's shared between all the stakeholders or parties. Then it is secure. Secure in the sense that there is no duplicate transactions, no double spends. There is permissions, cryptography, permissions on it, and then it is immutable. So once it goes there, if you change it, you'll come to know. When I say immutable, most of them think it is, you can't go and change it. Of course, you can go and change it. If you are the admin system, you can go ahead and change it, right? So the idea is that when we say immutable, we say it is tamper evident. What I mean by tamper evident is if someone goes and tampers it, everyone else in the network comes to know. And that is how it becomes secure, that if someone is messing around, you would come to know that someone is messing around. And then finally, it is agreeable. The reason for agreeable is it has built-in governance using consensus mechanisms and stuff like that at the grassroots levels. And then as you go up the chain, you have smart contracts to make sure that everyone is following a set of rules which are coded. And then finally, it has this ordering system where a logic ordering is done for every transaction, though it is distributed in some form or the other. So that's what blockchain is. So let me repeat it, a database which is shared, secure, and agreeable. So that is what, in a simple sense, is blockchain. So then the question comes, what are the building blocks of blockchain, right? So there are 5 main elements to build the blockchain, and why now, and why didn't it happen 20 years back or even further behind in our lifetime. So these are the 5 elements. One, it is a network. It's a distributed network. The reason for it is now the networks have become much more stable. You can transfer large amount of data between 2 computers because of the better bandwidth, better connectivity, better quality of service, and so on. So it's a distributed network. 2, it's a digital ledger. So it's a ledger which is distributed and it's digital. So every transaction and every peer has a copy of this transaction. Third, cryptography. So we've been using cryptographies from 19, even 1000 or even before in BCs, right? So cryptography is nothing but a simple mechanism to ensure that the data or the messages. Sorry, okay, someone was on a thing. So please go to mute. So cryptography is basically changing something so that the message is not plain simple to understand. Some form of algorithm is put in to scramble that data. The fourth point to this is consensus. So the basic problem why consensus came in the distributed network is the general Byzantine's problem. And then you guys can Google about it. I don't want to get into that depth right now, but go ahead and guys, if you're not speaking, go on mute, please. Yeah, so general Byzantine's problem, and then the BFTs are pretty much the core of the consensus, and then we have built much more simpler consensus on top of it right now, after Elon Musk going and saying that it is no more green and so on, and which is partly true. And then finally, the fifth one, which is what makes blockchain 2.0. From where we started with Bitcoins and proof of work and stuff like that, we are right now in blockchain 2.0. And 2.0 is basically because of the smart contracts. It changed the game totally. So smart contracts are nothing but business rules enforced onto the blockchain network to drive autonomous city, and it's codified, right? And everyone has that. And if you want to change something on the smart contract, everyone has to agree, and there is versioning and so on. So smart contract is what I would call a blockchain 2.0. And now slowly we are moving to blockchain 3.0. If you guys are not speaking, or if you're here to attend, go on mute. And that's the five building blocks of blockchain, right? So number one, again, to repeat, it's a distributed network. Number two, it is a digital ledger. Number three, it's cryptography enabled. Number four, it's consensus driven. And number five is all about smart contracts. So with this, let me try to share my screen. You guys let me know if you can see it. So one of you can come on. So desktop, there you go, share. Just give me a minute. It's asking me to give some permission. Okay, should have the permission now. So can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can, Deepak. Yes.
Awesome. So this is a basic visualization of what the blockchain looks like, right? So, and I was talking about cryptography. One of the main things which blockchain uses in it, other than the digital and the digital certificates and PKIs, is the hashing mechanism. So what is a hash? Hash is a set of series of or a string which comes out for a data. It's a fingerprint. It's easier to say. It's a digital fingerprint of a data, right? So for example, when you see it, if I say, hi, this is Deepak, and it gave me a fingerprint of this. So even if I add a dot, the fingerprint changes. If I have a space, it changes. Exclamation mark somewhere, it changes. So you know exactly that this is the data. So if you, and this is one way stuff, right? You can't reverse engineer and say, if I get a hash, can I tell what the data or the message is? So it's one way hash. So if you have that data, you can run it and then see if the fingerprint, which is the hash, is it the same? And if it is the same, then you know no one has tampered with that data. And this is the fundamental building block of blockchain, because all our blocks are built on hash, and every hash has different algorithms. And what we are using right now to demo is called SHA-256. And then there are MD5 and then so many else available on the internet, but the most common ones are this and MD5. So then the question becomes, what is a block? So a block is basically a set of attributes coming together to create a block. So the first one is, of course, the block number or an index. You start with 0. 0 is the genesis block. Then you have a nouns. We'll come back to announce what is that. Then you have the data element where you put the data, and then you have the hash. So once you have all of these in a structured form is what blockchain is. So in this example, what we have done is for a block to be verified, we have said that the hash has to start with 4 zeros. The reason is that if you have certain rules like this, right, 4 zeros, 5 zeros, 4 Fs, or whatever like that, that is when you build a difficulty in computing so that you need more computing power to come up with the hash, which has a certain rule set which you need to meet. And the rule set here in this example is that it should be leading with 4 zeros. So if I, for example, type again Deepak, what happens is, because it's not starting with 4 zeros, it's an invalid block.
Every block, every
can you guys go on mute, whoever is speaking, please? So where was I? Okay, so when I type Deepak there, the leading 4 zeros is gone, and it became an invalid block. So now when I ask it to mine, what's going to happen is it's going to find a nouns, which is a different, it's a random number, which will help the entire block to create a hash with a leading 4 zeros. So let's say mine, it's gone and figured out that 1886 is a nouns number which you need to create a hash which is starting with a 4 leading zeros, right? And then that's how it became a valid block. So this is a very simple mining process. Of course, in Bitcoin and others, the mining is much more complex. The arithmetic problem which you need to solve is much more complex. So then now we have understood what the hash is, what a block is. So let's now understand what a blockchain is, right? A blockchain is, like the name suggests, it's a series of blocks chained together. So how is it chained? So the chaining happens using the hash. So if you see the first block, which is the genesis block, it starts with 000 as its previous hash, because nothing is prior to it. And then it creates a hash for the current block number 1. And then it takes it to block 2. And if you see in block 2, the previous hash is the block 1's hash, and then its own hash. So if I change this data, everything changes, and then you need to keep mining it. So you mine the first one, where it becomes it became valid with the 4 zeros. And the second one is this one. So again, I mine it. It will calculate and then save this, right? And so on. And then that's how, and this is how the tampering also works. That if someone goes and tampers something in between, the entire block becomes invalid because the hash changes, and it's so chained, it's chained together. So if anything in between changes, you know that it is something is hampered, right? So that this is the visual demo of what blockchain is. Of course, there is this distributedness, which is the next thing. I will leave that to you guys to go and explore what distributed demo here does. Don't want to take the fun out of you guys if you're very curious. So with that, so that is how blockchain works, right? and I've stopped sharing. So
there's this distributedness, which is the next.
So if you're not on thing, please go on mute. So that is what blockchain is. Now, once we have understood what blockchain is and what it does, the logical next step is to understand if it is going to, what are the use cases where it can be used, right? And if it is going to be useful or not. So that's where I think when you boil down the entire ocean of all the use cases in blockchain, it comes down to two things. Basically, all the use cases are driven to these two main buckets. The first one is what we, at least I call it, and Accent calls it, is mutualized data. What I mean by mutualized data is everyone has a copy and the data is shared with everyone. And there is the single source of truth is with everyone, right? Because everyone has a copy of it. So any use case, if you distill it down, few of them might come to mutualized data. The other one is basically tokenized value transfer. So anything, the other set of use cases will become whatever value you want to transfer from one person to the other person. Bitcoin is a very simple example of that, where you are transferring from one person to the other. And this is where we talk about land records, Bitcoins, or even in our in the corporate world, it could be a supply chain where the invoice or the goods are getting transferred to one person to other. You're tokenizing it as a virtual asset onto the chain and then using it to take it forward. So these, ultimately, whatever use case you say that the blockchain can be applied, if you go and ask and go to the root of it, these are the two use cases, these are the two buckets it falls into. Mutualized data, where you want to share data between them and then make it mutualized, and then you work on that data. And the second one is the value transfer by tokenizing it. So those are the two use cases. In the beginning, I said, so what is multi-party system, right? So if you look at the entire universe with databases and stuff like that, and how the data is used, there are the biggest set is the superset is, of course, data itself and databases and stuff. But then the subset of that is distributed database, where the genesis of this came in, right? And you have this distributed database like, I'll just use this name because it's pretty interesting, and you guys can go ahead and research a little more. It's called, this distributed database is called CockroachDB, if you guys have not come across it. So it's a very interesting distributed database. And we are, in Accenture, we are using it to do multiple things. So it's a very robust distributed database. And a subset of distributed database then comes your distributed ledger. That is where you have platforms like Quorum, Coda, and stuff like that, where it is not forming a block like what I showed you, but a ledger, right? It is a distributed ledger. A Quorum or a Coda creates a ledger entries, and the ledger itself is distributed and put across the network. And then finally comes your blockchain network itself, the blockchain itself, where the data is organized in blocks, and then there are consensus and stuff. The most common one is, of course, Bitcoin, and then Hyperledger Fabric, and a Quorum's version of the Quorum's parent, which is Ethereum, and so on. So that is how the blockchain's hierarchy is, right? The database in general, distributed database, a distributed ledger, and a blockchain. So what we have gone and realized in my 4 years of experience working with companies is everyone talks about blockchain being a hammer, right? And then everything else is a nail. So you go ahead and wherever you have a distributedness, wherever you feel thing, you say, okay, let's use blockchain. And that is not what we want to do. And it was very tough. My early parts of, and even now, is convincing my clients to say that this is the right use case for blockchain and this is not a right use case for blockchain, right? And then everyone comes up and says, okay, let's go and use blockchain. And then we need to take a step back and say, okay, this might not be the right use case for it, and so on. And that is where we devise this term called as multi-party system. So wherever you know that blockchain might not be the case, then you could use a distributed ledger, which is just a ledger with a very light consensus and distributedness and so on, which is like a coda. And then if that also doesn't meet, maybe distributed databases can do the job. Like, for example, like the cockroach DB I was speaking about. So, and then you come in and say, okay, we don't want to use a lot of blockchain or a distributed ledgers mechanism. We want to use just a part of it. Like I want to use just the tokenization of it, right? For example, one of the screenshot. I got your screenshot. Thanks. So if you go with this, where was I? Okay, so for example, you don't want to use the entire theme of blockchain, right? All the features of blockchain. You just want to use a certain part for it, and in this case, you want to use tokenization. One of the interesting use cases which we implemented for one of the media companies is we used it for customer loyalty. We use blockchain for customer loyalty for two reasons. One, we wanted the distributed ledger so that everyone in the ecosystem who is going to be a part of the loyalty program, different retails and so on, they had the exact copy of it and they could update it saying that Deepak had 100 points and he used 50 in my store and he's left with 50 and he can go and use it. And that reconciliation was a big problem, right? And it's still a big problem for all the loyalty programs because it's all the places and it takes 2 to 1 week or 7 days to reconcile and come back, and you can't use your points till it gets reconciled and so on. And then with this, you could use your distributed ledger to make that happen. And the second one is when you start, when you wanted to tokenize the entire asset itself, the points itself, and said, okay, it moves from one to another, and you don't create a lot of points because every point is points are again a liability to a company, and maintaining it is a big headache. And that is why the customer loyalty on blockchain with tokenizing the points make it so that you don't keep on increasing your points, but you use it to recirculate the same thing from different retailers and stakeholders and customers. And that is where I was saying the multi-party system did not need the entire blockchain per se. We just needed a tokenization concept and a digital ledger. And then that's how we could combine those and still make it a workable solution. And that is where the coining of multi-party system comes in, where multiple parties are coming together to do a certain agreed goal, to achieve an agreed goal. And that is where it becomes interesting, right? With that, now let's jump a little more on a few of the use cases. One of them was loyalty, which I spoke about. The most common one is the supply chain and tracking and tracing. I don't want to get into it. I want to pick things which are very interesting. In COVID times, we are talking about vaccine passport or health passport, right? It's a perfect candidate for blockchain. We use this in multiple ways. You can use it You could have a wallet and all your data, your health records, your vaccine records, your travel records. I put it onto the wallet and then have that wallet and then give that data to the relevant people and revoke that data. There is an interesting tech talk which I did a couple of years back before COVID in TEDx. I would urge you to go ahead and look at it because I brought in the Aadhaar concept and superheroes. So there is a story about Batman, how he uses blockchain and Aadhaar and all of that to save the world. So it will be a good 18 minutes if you want to go and have a look at it. Just search my name in YouTube, Deepak Lalan, and then Deepak Lalan TEDx or TED, and it will pop up. So just go into it. So I feel blockchain or distributed ledger with COVID passports and health records, or the way we are calling it as a COVID passport. And in Accenture, we have started using it for return to office, right? If you're coming back to office, have you taken vaccination? So that data is inside the wallet. Till when is the vaccine valid? Where did you take it? Did you have previous? Were you diagnosed previously for COVID or not? And then so on, so that you trust that data, and it's much more easier that when you get it, it is in line to your policies, so that then you can take action quickly, and then you write your smart contracts on top of it to say what is the next best action you want to take. Becomes a very great case for blockchain. So that's one of those big relevant right now kind of a technology. The next one, of course, you guys are reading about NEFTs and DeFi, decentralized finance, and so on, where blockchain and DLTs will make a huge impact. One of the things which is of interest is the centralized bank digital currency, CBDC, which is getting popular. Most of the countries are experimenting it. We started with US, Canada. We are doing it in Indonesia, Thailand, and also in different places, right? It's a form of how do I use digital ledgers or DLTs and then use fiat currency and use this and combine them so that it uses all the great transparency and trust. You can build trust and transparency on the fiat currency and use blockchain onto it to make it much more faster, transparent, and trustworthy. So most of these central banks have started their experiment. A few of them have gone a little further, and few are still behind. Like for India, we are just still talking and putting this in play. And then you go ahead and then the entire ecosystem gets benefited then, because you have a ledger which is then available to everyone, and then you instead of you waiting for end of day for the reconciliations to happen at the bank and so on, it could happen real time or near real time with these facilities, right? And that is where all of these are becoming popular. So the second big thing which is going to change or transform the world we are looking at is the DeFi, which is becoming popular, and CBDC is one of those most common use case which is building it, right? Then comes a few other interesting stuff, and then this is where I talk to Vicky and keep talking to them about it, is in the entertainment industry. One of the most common ones which people talk about is the IP rights, the artist rights, and so on. But I would want to talk a little offbeat, because all of these you can read. So the other one which I like is to be used in reality shows, right? For example, let's say Indian Idol. I think it is running right now. So Indian Idol, you're casting your vote to your favorite contestant, and you don't know if your vote is really mattered, and how many votes he's got, how many of them the others have got, and so on. So it's a black box, and and it would be easily rigged for TRPs, right? Putting blockchain there makes enormous sense to me. So you have, you know exactly that no one can tamper with it. It's transparent if you want to look at it to know how many of them have voted and where it's gone. Oh man, you scared the hell out of me. Anyways, so that's where I think blockchain makes sense. So I'm taking all these offbeat stuff. So tell me if and when I open up for question and answers in next 10 minutes, you can ask questions. The other interesting stuff which I'm seeing is, and then we call this as prosumers, right? You're no more a consumer, you're also a producer. So you produce and consume at the same time. And one of those industries which is revolutionizing these is the energy sector, where you're putting a solar rooftop, you're generating electricity, and you're giving back to the grid. So how do I manage them, right? How do I make sure that the bidding is happening? And that is where the smart contract comes in, and the blockchain comes in, where the reconciliations, the bidding, the business rules are all applied on a smart contract, and the consensus is formed through the network, and then you're trading your power which you're producing, which you don't want to use. And these are called microgrids, prosumers, and so on, which becomes very, very interesting use case to look at. And then we've already Thailand, we worked with the Thailand power, and then so on to make this a reality. Very interesting case there on how this could become so autonomous and automated that you don't have to worry on how the power is coming in. You're bidding at the right time and selling it when the prices are high, and so on. The next important use case and a bit of offbeat is again when the autonomous cars are going to become popular, right? Driverless cars. Having a vehicle-to-vehicle communication from one car to another, how can you trust it? How can you build a consensus around it? Why and how do I monetize the data which I might pass, right? Maybe Ford is passing some data to Toyota, or as a user, I'm passing some as a user for these, I'm passing some certain information to another vehicle. For example, let's say I'm on the highway, and then I see some deer crossing over, right? And then I could alert the vehicles coming behind me saying that, hey, deer alert, there might be a deer here, so slow down, be more vigilant. And then the machine could take necessary actions and slow it down, slow itself down, and so on. Is another great use case. Or you could put a wallet inside a car and use it for parking, right? When you go, and you don't have to take out your wallet and pay, but you use your blockchain wallet, which is there in the car, to pay for your parking. Or if you want to, let's say, do a ride share, use it for ride share and get paid from it. Or when you're crossing the toll, use that to pay your toll, and so on. So that's the set of use cases. Very interesting, very offbeat, not the general set of things which you hear on the internet or your friends speaking about. I wanted to bring a different perspective to blockchain. I hope I met that. So this keeps happening, so I need to get used to it. So the final thing which I want to leave you with is two things, right? Blockchain is not a single sport, right? It is a team sport. So when you need all your consortium, you need all your stakeholders to come together, and that is where we call blockchain consortium where people come together into a network, create a consortium, and then work. And each consortium has its own goals, and they work against that and work with that goal in mind to make that happen. So there are multiple consortiums available in this world right now. Everyone are creating one. So the few which are very common and popular, at least the ones again offbeat. I don't want to talk the food where Walmart is doing, or media where Disney is doing, and you guys would find that. One of them which is a little offbeat is Mobi. It's the a mobility, it's a vehicle consortium, vehicle manufacturers consortium, where they're trying to build this use case, which I just said, creating a wallet within the car, where you have the central ICUs, you have a wallet there, and then you use that wallet for multiple other things. So like Mobi, there are multiple others in health, in public services, in every industry. There is a consortium because it's a team play and it's not an individual play. So that's number one. And the last one, which I want to leave you with, is, as I promised, so what are your career opportunities in this space, right? And then I'll open up for questions for 15 minutes. I have, I think I'll take another 3-4 minutes here. So if you're looking at a career in blockchain and DLTs, there are 3 big buckets which you can look at, right? One is more towards, I would coin it, and there is a blog I've written, which is there in the Accenture careers, right? And if you search Deepak Accenture and career blog, this will come up, and it sums up the same thing which I would say right now, if you want to refer this back. So the 3 buckets which we are talking about is, number one, is a go-to-market kind of a role. So it is more sales and business advisory kind of a role, right? Where you are, where you understand the technology and you try to apply this technology for a client problem. So, for example, a client would come and say, hey, I have this problem. And then you think, yeah, can blockchain make sense? And then you do your research, you get into the processes and then the client's request, and then go ahead and come out with a point of view to say if blockchain makes sense or not. That's a role where you're playing a consultant to see if the blockchain meets that requirement or not. Or it could be a pure simple selling blockchain and preparing all the sales pitches and then presentation and so on, which is the second one. And the third one is basically you're a business expert, domain in a domain expert in a particular thing, and then you try to say how does DLTs or blockchain apply, and then you take it to the client as a go-to-market strategy there. So the premise of all these in this bucket is I understand blockchain, and how can I then take it to the client and make his life better or make his efficiencies go higher. So that's bucket number one. The bucket two is where you're doing solutioning. You're solutioning a blockchain technology for your client. And this is where the questions like comes in, like, how can I take blockchain and help with the innovation agenda for my client? Or can I use blockchain to improve and with all the tech stack, can I help improve a certain aspects of my client in their process and so on. So are the two things which make sense, right? And then these are where you are engaging with the client to envisage and capitalize on the possibilities of what blockchain can bring to them. So with with that, then the last set is where you are actually implementing blockchain, right? You're a coder, where you code smart contracts, you implement blockchain technologies, you manage projects in blockchain, you're a tester, and so on. And then the final thing about it is you could be a business analyst. So this is where you implement things in blockchain. So these are the three ways in which you could get associated to a blockchain industry. And so obviously the next question comes, how do I then get prepared for a career in it? And nowadays the information is available everywhere. So my suggestion would be to start informal, bite-size learning boards, right? It could be contents on YouTube or Vimeos and stuff like that, or any reads which are very small, informal, very quick reads, small bite-sized information. You start consuming them. If you get interested and if you think this is the right thing, then you move on to a focused online learning. And then there are Coursera's, Udemy's, edX, and so on. And then of course there are universities and institutes like yours, which give a little more thing, right? So once you have grasped that, that's when you start going into a real institute and you say, okay, I want to learn more and get to know a lot more into it. And while you're doing that, you can also look at getting certified and accredited by platforms like Hyperledger, Coda, IBM, and so on, to help you get yourself certified and say, okay, I understand this platform for a longer time. There are some unconventional ways to also get into it. Few of them are basically hackathon. You attend hackathons, blockchain hackathons, try and implement whatever is there in a short period of time to get that. And then finally, look at online engagements where you could help and take them forward. There are so many consortiums which I was talking about, which require people to volunteer and so on. So you could volunteer and understand and work with people who know it. So all of these, to sum this up, right? So blockchain is still in the peak. It's still climbing the peak of the hype curve, which Gartner gives. We are waiting for it for a long time. And it's because it's a team sport. It takes time to adopt, but from last 4 years of me doing this, I've understood that we take the adopt, because it's a team sport. It takes a little more time to get everyone to agree on a certain goal to go on, right? So, for example, when you guys decide on what for example, what to eat, a group of friends of you together want to decide what to eat, you can't come to a common consensus very quickly. It takes time, and this has now monetary benefits, and you're not risking anything. When it comes to bigger organizations, there is a lot at stake, and for them to come to consensus and then say that, okay, I'll share my data and we have a common goal, is going to take some time. And of course, pandemic has accelerated adoption of blockchain in few areas like health and travel and so on. And then the digital currency, which I was talking about, CBDC. And then the rest are a slow progress with supply chain and all the other traditional use cases which we see. With that, I will stop and would like to take questions. I know there were a few which are typed out and asked. So let's take that. And if you have questions, I would say just unmute yourself and ask that instead of me going through each of them and missing them. Is that okay, Mr. Sanjay?
Deepak, what I'll do is I'll read out the questions from the chat
sorry.
box, and as they come along, and apologies for all the disturbance during your talk, right?
Yeah, I got scared for a few of them, which were very loud. Like, what the hell happened? Did someone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some people joined late and they're not muted when they join. So yeah, the first question, Deepak, first of all, thank you for this very good session, and it was on point, whatever we were expecting. Excellent. Thank you very much, Deepak.
Sure.
So first question is, do we connect and secure 2 or more different blockchains in distributed systems or distributed
Yes,
blockchains?
so that's another big research area, and we've Accenture has a patent on it, and that's the future, and that's where I was talking about blockchain 3.0. This is where the interoperability of blockchain comes in. So you two blockchains can talk to each other and still avoid double spends, have consensus between these two things. So there is a big research which is happening. There are protocols. And there are things where you can, in the crypto world, right? You can use a Bitcoin and then go into a Ethereum world and then use the gas and so on. So you those kind of interoperability is coming up in layer 2s and layer 3s. It's blockchain 3.0. It'll definitely.
So right now it's not happening, but it will happen
in the research stage. A few of them have protocols for it, and you can search for interoperability. You will get some 3-4 startups which do it. But yeah, it'll become a de facto in coming years.
So Deepak, yeah, one related question is, so all these new technologies, they start with startups, is it? And then the big companies like Accenture take it up. How does it work out? So you have been working on emerging technologies, right?
Yes, most Pareto, 80% of them start in the startup environment and then move into it. But 20 of them are where organizations like us would like the interoperability. We knew this would be a problem. We started working on it and put papers and patents, and we gave it out. And now startups have taken that and then building on it. And the second reason is the companies like us are so massive that they are not very easy to navigate to do such cool stuff.
Flexibility is lacking, right?
Yeah, lacking. But now every big organization has this innovation group and so on. So that's changing. So you will see a lot of such innovations now coming from a big, large, established companies. So I'm thinking that pivot is happening. But yeah, till now, 80% from the industry.
So next question is from Rashi Bansal. If we share data using blockchain, for example, an invoice, then how does the receiving end gets the value of invoice, as the hash cannot be reversed back to string?
Yeah, so when you share data, you could the hash is only to say that there was no change in the invoice, right? If I send an invoice saying I sold 10 water bottles and I sold it for 100 rupees per unit, and this is the amount. You want the hash to tell that no one is tampered with 100 rupees per unit and 100 or 10 water bottles, right? And the hash will tell you if someone tampered it or not. What you are asking for is encryption. If I encrypted that data, how will he know? Of course, there is this entire concept of PKI, public key infrastructure, where I encrypt with the public key of the guy, and then he uses his private key to decrypt it and look at it. That's another layer on blockchain which you can apply on the data element, where you could encrypt the entire block data element and then pass the public keys and private keys. Of course, you don't pass the private key, but using the PKI infrastructure, you do that. The other aspect to this is, let's say in the supply chain, you have 10 players, right? And the invoice has the amount. You don't want the logistic guy to know the amount, the worthiness of that thing which he's taking, right? He could then leak it out to his competitor and say, hey, this guy is selling it at 100 rupees. So that is when this encryption comes in play. And then there is a new concept, at least in blockchain 2.0, which I keep saying 2.0, you'll never find this in the internet, but you'll go and search 2.0 and say, what bakwas Deepak ne bola. So this is just my terminology. So in blockchain 2.0, what we did on top of smart contracts is create private channels within blockchain. So you could do a transaction within the entire thing on a private channel between, it's like, and you guys are all Twitter thing, it is like DM. I'm directly messaging you and it is not for the entire public. So the entire, whatever you put as a post or a tweet is for the entire general public. And then the DM is for you and me only. So you could do that in blockchain. So I and you could transact on something, and whatever you want on a public network, we could put it on a public network. So that is how you could manage all of these.
Okay. So is it like this WhatsApp that we say WhatsApp messages are encrypted, right? But the person can still read it, right? So third party can't unscramble it and read it. So
correct.
Similar
process,
thing. Similar thing. Correct. So moving on to the next question, Mridul has this question. Is distributed ledger part of blockchain?
It's a distributed ledger is a superset. Blockchain is a subset. So distributed ledger is using a ledger technology, a digital ledger, to then pass that ledger and share that ledger and distribute that ledger. Whereas in blockchain, we are taking that ledger and forming a block. Like what I said, it had index, it had nouns, it had data, data element, and then a hash element, right? All of them put together is a block. Whereas in a distributed ledger, you just have one line item, and then you as a ledger entry, and then you start sharing those. And you could do the same thing. You could have a hash, you could encrypt that ledger line item and so on. But it doesn't form, you don't need to mine it. You don't need to have proof of work kind of consensus and all of those. It works in a different way with endorsers and so on.
Right. So next question, Deepak, is from Sai Kiran. Can we create blocks for blockchain without actually mining for other services, such as supply chain and smart contracts and insurance?
Yeah, so that is where the new set of consensus mechanisms are coming, where you don't have to mine and go and say, okay, I have to go and figure out what the hash is, and I want the hashes to lead with 4 zeros and all. So you have consensus mechanism like proof of authority or proof of stake, where proof of authority would say, okay, if I'm the authority in the chain, and if I say this is right, it is right. And then I could have it endorsed by another 2 guys, so that I don't become a sole centralized guy who says this is right. And maybe you can have a round robin of those and so on. So proof of stake works that authority works that way. You have proof of stake where you don't have to really mine, but you have a logic which decides what is right and what is not.
Right. Thank you, Deepak. Rahul Sengupta has this question: how blockchain technology helps in the mining of cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency itself is a blockchain implementation. So yeah, you're mining the consensus, right? You're mining the proof of work, which I just said. You're actually mining that to come to a consensus that this is, Deepak has. Of course, I don't have it. I don't want to iterate tomorrow. I don't have 100 Bitcoins as of now. But if I say I have 100 Bitcoins, someone has to agree that I have 100 Bitcoins. So
$60,000 each, Deepak.
Yeah, yeah, it felt like crazy. So anyways, I don't speculate on it. But that is where your mining happens. And yes, it is a blockchain technology.
So Mridul has a question: are there any courses available for blockchain?
Or multiple. You should ask Sanjay sir. He'll know it. But there are on Google, if you search, there are multiple. Like I said, start with bite-sized YouTube videos to see if you are interested in it. Just don't go ahead and say, okay, I want to do it, because it's a combination of multiple complex technologies coming together. So, and then depending on whether you want to be the go-to-market guy or a solutioning guy or a techie, you could pick one of those roles, to develop yourself on it. Yeah.
Ronak has this question, Deepak. What exactly is hard forking?
Okay.
Hard forking.
So I've written a jargon buster on it. So if you go back to either my tweet or my LinkedIn or Instagram, all these three places have a nice pictures of all these nice jargons which are broken it down. So one line answer is basically, let's take today. We have a big problem that Bitcoin is using a lot of power because it's using proof of work as a consensus mechanism. Now, when I change it to, let's say, proof of stake or proof of authority, and that's a branch where I'll have a different branch to it, right? That is hard forking. So I have a branch which I've forked away from proof of stake, and a new set of things are coming out of it. A detailed description, of course, go look at it. I'm not selling my social media, but it has so much of information that you can read about it.
Do you have time for a couple of more questions, Deepak?
Go ahead. I'm at the end of the hour, so
Okay.
I have a few more. I kept another half an hour.
It's 19 hours.
Just to make sure.
Oh, okay, Deepak. So next question is from Ratnesh. To what extent we can say blockchain is secure? So he says, like in case of Bitcoin, the power outage problem happened in China and Bitcoin crashed by 30%. Or it's entirely manipulated by China. Anyway, let's stick to the first part. So to what extent do you think it's secure?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the political battle. Thanks for that. If someone takes 51%, right, it's all based on consensus. If someone has control over the 51% of the network, then he has control over the entire thing. So, and then he could say, okay, I have 10 million Bitcoins, you have to agree because he has 51% to say it is true. How secure it is, quantum, when it comes, all your encryptions and all of those you're done can be broken in a minute, but that quantum is far off. The only way people have lost money or lost things is losing their private key. So all what has happened is by giving away the private key or losing private key or not knowing how the exchanges work and so on. Otherwise, fundamentally, the blockchain technology itself is pretty secure. It's the ignorance on top of it on how they're using and where am I doing what is the problem. It's not the technology itself.
Deepak, next question is from Reshma. Do organizations prefer private blockchains or public blockchains? Approximately how much cost is involved for a startup to set up a private blockchain? Someone wants to become an entrepreneur.
Exactly. Most of our enterprises want to use private blockchain. And yeah, I didn't cover this. So the difference between a private blockchain and a public blockchain is, for the rest of them, is a private blockchain is a very close group of people coming together, and it's not open for anyone to join. Whereas a public blockchain, anyone can join. Bitcoin, I want to put a node tomorrow and start mining, you can do that, and no one is going to stop you if you know how to do it. So enterprises are 90% on private blockchain, and the same reason, because if they lose 51% of the network, right? If let's say Coca-Cola and Pepsi, if Pepsi gets 51% of that network in public, then it can do whatever it wants to set up, and then Coca-Cola would not have control. So that is why public blockchain is not a place for enterprises, and most of them use private blockchain. To your second, approximately how much it costs to get. Again, it depends on what kind of a startup is it. Is just a consultancy, then you don't need anything except yourself and your mind to do it. If it is an implementation, then you need developers to do it, and they are hot skill, and then you don't get them so easily, and most of them are at a at a skin deep level, right? Because they only know certain things and they're not gone deeper. So I would say a startup in consultancy makes sense, or a deep technology, nothing in between. So if you're an implementation guy, it becomes, there are so many of them who are doing it that it doesn't make sense. But if you write a layer 2 protocol, or you're ready to like the interoperability which we spoke about, if you're ready to go and mess around with the core layer of blockchain to do all of these, then it makes sense. Otherwise, staying at an consultant and implementing is the second place of it. So cost is just a arbitrary number because the details and variables are too many.
So we'll take 2 more questions, Deepak, and
Sure.
then we'll call it a day. Which GPU, this question is from Indranil Mukherjee, which GPUs can farm Bitcoins without being heavy on the pocket? Interesting question.
I'm an enterprise guy, so I don't know anything about Bitcoins. How is that? No. So there are so many everyone has a different opinion on those. But GPU is the answer. Let me put it this way: whatever GPU is the better way to do it, and then there are multiple variations of it, and so on. So I have no fan favorites, and I don't want to root for any GPUs. So sorry for not answering directly and being modest. But it's your choice.
So Deepak, the last question for the day. This is from Renuka. Why is hash pointer used instead of pointer?
Okay, so this is it'll take a lot of time to go technically deeper, but you have my sure. So just ping, and then I'll explain, or I'll give you an article which will tell you why. It's a lot of technical explanation which I need. Is that
right, Deepak? So thank you very much for taking time out to address us, and it was a pleasure listening to you. A lot of concepts got clarified over the course of your session, and I wish that you come over to Hyderabad physically and visit us and address our students.
definitely?
So, and hopefully that will happen soon. And on behalf of IBS Hyderabad, faculty members and students, I thank you once again.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have light here. I need to go and switch on to that.
No issues, Deepak.
But
no
thanks
issues.
a lot, and it was a pleasure. Thanks, Sanjay, for inviting, and all the best to all of you there.
Bye, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.